to share, but our message to Iran is you better take this president seriously, and I think the Houthis learned that the hard way this past weekend.
This is my video update on this Tuesday midday, March the 18th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the Trump-Putin phone call, which is going to take place today between 4 and 6 p.m. Moscow time. So when I publish this video, we will probably be getting the results of the actual phone call between Trump and Putin. We'll be getting some sort of statement or readout. But I will record this video nonetheless and talk about some of the possible outcomes of the phone call between U.S. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. We have a lot of rumors as to what is going to be discussed and what concessions are going to be made. According to Semaphore, Trump is going to recognize Crimea as Russian territory. That is going to be one of the big concessions that Trump makes in order to end the war. Not only will the U.S. officially recognize Crimea, according to Semaphore, but they're also going to push the United Nations to recognize Crimea as part of the Russian Federation. You know, it was 10 years today, or is it 11 years? How's my Aunt Annalena Baerbock math? March 18th, 2014. 11 years. 11 years ago today that Crimea became part of the Russian Federation, officially became part of the Russian Federation, right? Today is March 18th, 2025. On March 18th, 2014, so Annalena math, 2025 minus 2001, 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. So 2, so that's 11. That's 11 years. Oh, Annalena Baerbock 316 math is very difficult. Very difficult. How does she do it? I don't know. She must be a genius. Anyway, 11 years ago, Crimea decided to officially join the Russian Federation, actually Crimea and Sevastopol. On March 18th, 2014, Crimea officially returned home. The return of the peninsula is fixed by an interstate agreement signed that day in the Kremlin. It legislated the decision of the Crimeans. 96% of voters in the referendum voted for the entry of Crimea into Russia. So that happened today. Crimea entered the Russian Federation. And today we may be getting some sort of an agreement between the United States and Russia in this proxy war in Ukraine. The United States negotiating with Russia. No European Union, no Zelensky regime. Caroline Levitt, she said, the White House spokeswoman, said that peace in Ukraine has never been closer. Speaking to reporters, Levitt compared the negotiations to American football. We are on the 10th yard line of peace, and we've never been closer to a peace deal than we are in this moment. And the president, as you know, is determined to get one done, she said. Trump said earlier that he would discuss the control of territories and dividing up certain assets with Putin on Tuesday. The leaders are also expected to discuss the 30-day ceasefire proposed by the U.S. So maybe we get some sort of a deal. Maybe we do not get some sort of a deal. Maybe we get a statement saying that we're getting closer to a deal. We're going to have to wait and see. But when you're on the 10-yard line in football, you are close to the end zone, very close to a touchdown, but it's difficult to score from the 10-yard line. A lot of times you have to kick a field goal instead of getting the touchdown. So we'll see. Let's wait and see what the White House says. And more importantly, let's wait and see what the Kremlin says after the phone call. But the New York Times, they're talking about Odessa. That is what the New York Times is reporting. Odessa going to Russia. The Trump administration saying, okay, we will concede Odessa. Trump did say when he was on Air Force One that they are talking about land and territory, the ZNPP, and Witkoff actually talked about Black Sea ports. Now, Alexander, in a video that we made on the Duran, brought up the excellent point that if there are discussions focused on the ZNPP, the nuclear power plant, then that is at the initiative of the United States or Ukraine. Ukraine and the Europeans are telling the United States you have to bring up the ZNPP when you talk to Russia. But if there are talks focused on Black Sea ports, Odessa, that's what we're talking about. When Witkoff says Black Sea ports, we're talking about Odessa. Then that is being brought up at the initiative of the Russians. They're the ones that are bringing up Odessa and the Black Sea ports. So the New York Times is saying that this is going to be a possible concession made by the Trump administration. Now, to be clear, the New York Times, in their article, which has the title, Trump discussion with Putin to focus on what Ukraine will lose. In an echo of the Yalta Conference in 1945, the American and Russian leaders will talk on Tuesday about who gets what in the process of ending the war in Ukraine. In this article from the New York Times, their source for the claim that Odessa could be returning to Russia is coming from Ukrainian officials. So I just want to be clear about that. That is where the New York Times is getting this reporting, where they're saying that one of the concessions being made to Russia is going to be Odessa. They're saying that because Ukrainian officials expressed fear to the New York Times that Trump might be ready to concede Odessa in order to get to a peace in Ukraine, which could make sense because Russia has won this conflict and they're going to dictate the terms. And if the Trump White House really wants to disengage from Project Ukraine, they could say, Odessa, fine. All of Zaporozhye, fine. All of Kherson, fine. For us, it doesn't really impact the U.S.'s national security if it means that we can disengage from Project Ukraine and we can end this conflict. You guys have won the war. Russia, you won the war, so all right. But before we get ahead of ourselves, this is coming from Ukraine. The sourcing of this article from the New York Times is coming from Ukraine and Ukraine officials' fears as Trump is going to speak with Putin. So let's get into this New York Times article because they talk about Yalta, Churchill, Stalin, Roosevelt, World War II, because when it comes to the collective West, there is no other history. It is only World War II. That's the only thing that happened in the world. That's it. No other history, no other conflicts, no other wars, no other good, no other bad, no other peace deals, no other agreements, nothing. It's only World War II. All analysis, all geopolitical analysis revolves around World War II when it comes to the collective West, when it comes to collective West leaders, when it comes to collective West media reporting. It's always about World War II, and so this is about Yalta. Once again, we're talking about the United States and Russia. Back then, the United States, the UK, and the USSR. But here they are again, and they're going to carve up, carve up the world, right? That's it. That's all they've got. World War II. Everyone is either a Churchill, or they are the Mustache Man, or they are Neville Chamberlain. That's it. You're either Churchill, Zelensky's Churchill, Stammer's Churchill, Macron is Churchill, Kaja Kallas is Churchill. They're either Churchill or they're the Mustache Man. Putin, Mustache Man. Trump, Mustache Man. Viktor Orban, Mustache Man. Fico, Mustache Man. Elon Musk, Mustache Man. Or you're Neville Chamberlain. Appeasement. Neville Chamberlain. Orban, you want peace in Ukraine? Chamberlain. Trump wants peace in Ukraine? Chamberlain. Fico, peace in Ukraine? Chamberlain. Yeah. Neville Chamberlain. Not Wilt Chamberlain. I think it would be cooler if it was Wilt Chamberlain, but Neville Chamberlain. Anyway, let's get to the who was the actor? Chamberlain. Who was the actor? Chamberlain. I forgot his first name. But he was another Chamberlain. No one ever compares all the world leaders to that guy, huh? Richard Chamberlain? Is that it? Yeah, Richard Chamberlain. It's always Neville Chamberlain. It's never Wilt Chamberlain or Richard Chamberlain. Score 100 points in an NBA game? Wilt Chamberlain. Oh, man. Yeah, Richard Chamberlain. Yeah. Anyway, I got a little sidetracked. The New York Times article, to hear President Trump describe it, he and President Vladimir Putin of Russia are about to have something akin to their own Yalta moment. Great powers determining borders within Europe. He didn't explicitly refer to the 1945 meeting where Churchill, Stalin, and a deathly ill Franklin D. Roosevelt carved the continent into the American-aligned West and the Soviet-dominated East, creating spheres of influence that become the battleground of the Cold War. Listen to his manipulation of words, the New York Times. American-aligned West, that's good, that sounds good, right? American-aligned West, it's very good. It's very friendly, very fuzzy. Soviet-dominated East. It's terrible, man, the Soviet-dominated East. That's brutal. Anyway, but talking to reporters on Air Force One while returning from Florida on Sunday night, Mr. Trump made clear that his scheduled phone conversations with Mr. Putin on Tuesday would be focused on what lands and assets Russia would retain in any ceasefire with Ukraine. Because as I said earlier in this video, it is the winner that will dictate the terms, not the loser. The winner will dictate the terms, and Russia is the winner. This is just the way the world works. The loser does not dictate terms. I don't think that's ever happened. So Russia is going to dictate the terms. Mr. Trump was careful not to say much about what parts of Ukraine territory he was discussing, or whether he would try to limit Mr. Putin's ambitions. The Trump administration has already made clear it expects Russia to control the land that its troops already command, roughly 20% of Ukraine. But aides to President Zelensky of Ukraine said last month they were concerned that Mr. Trump may entertain Mr. Putin's other desires for parts of Ukraine, perhaps including the critical port of Odessa. So that's where the fears from the New York Times are coming from. From aides to Zelensky, telling the New York Times that perhaps Trump may entertain Putin's desires for Odessa. towards the end of the article from the New York Times, they talk about how the outcome in these talks will directly impact what could be happening in China. So the New York Times is already pivoting towards the next possible smash, which is with China. In an interview, Professor Toft said that land expansion is what Putin wants, and it's obviously what Trump wants. Just look at Greenland and Panama and Canada. She continued, this is what these leaders think they need to do to make their countries great again. The big question mark is China, she added. The outcome of the negotiations, and particularly the question of whether Mr. Putin is rewarded for what has been a brutally expansive war, may indicate what will happen if Xi Jinping decides he wants to take Taiwan. So they're already pivoting towards China, the New York Times, according to Professor Toft. I'm Professor Toft, and I'm telling you that Russia, they want land because they don't have enough of it. Oh boy. So anyway, that's the New York Times, and they're reporting on the Trump-Putin phone call. I don't think I have anything else to discuss with this phone call. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what is decided, what the readouts tell us, what the statements tell us. This may be a big nothing burger. The readout may be something along the lines of Putin and Trump held a phone call. We're making progress. Everything looks good. We'll continue to talk in the next couple of weeks or something like that. Of course, we could be getting an announcement saying that we got a deal. That could also be one of the announcements. We'll find out today. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Let's talk about what's going on in Kursk. Because in Kursk, it looks like the Ukraine military that was trapped in Kursk, at least a big part of it, has managed to get out of Kursk. There are small pockets of Ukraine military which are trapped in Kursk. There are reports, according to Russian media, that you have 30 NATO officials who are trapped in Kursk. But you are getting a lot of reports which claim that the majority of Ukrainian troops, and the reports were anywhere between 4,000 to 7,000 Ukrainian troops in Kursk, that they have mostly left the cauldron in Kursk on foot. They managed to escape. I'm going to read you a post from Patrick Lancaster, who was on the ground in Kursk. So I think this is probably the most reliable source that you're going to get out of Kursk. I'm on Kursk, Russia front, on Russian positions. From what I've seen, there are very small groups of Ukrainian soldiers hiding and encircled, but no major encirclement of Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian soldiers have been beaten out of the vast majority of the territory they controlled in Kursk region. Soon there will be no more Ukrainian troops in Kursk region, Russia. And you have an article from The Economist, the neocon Economist, with the title, Ukraine's Army Escapes from Kursk by the Skin of Its Teeth. And Trump made a statement yesterday saying that he's going to be speaking with President Putin to save Ukrainian soldiers who are in a very difficult situation. He said they are surrounded by Russian forces. If it wasn't for me, they'd be gone already. And Trump went on to say that he managed to convince Putin to spare their lives. So if I had to take a guess, this is just a guess, I would guess that somehow the Ukraine soldiers in Kursk were allowed to exit the encirclement, dropping all of their weapons, all of their equipment, and if they could get out on foot, they were allowed to get out on foot. That would be my guess. It's just a guess. The other thing that may have been going on is that maybe there was not a large encirclement of 4,000 or 7,000 Ukrainian soldiers in Kursk. That's another scenario. But either way, it does look like the bulk of the Ukrainian soldiers have managed to escape Kursk. And the encirclement in Kursk, you do have, according to Patrick, some Ukrainian soldiers who are indeed trapped and for whatever reason have not been able to get out. Maybe they could not exit on foot. Maybe they decided to stay and fight. Who knows? Maybe we're talking about mercenaries and the Russians are not allowing them to leave. Maybe we're talking about NATO officials and NATO soldiers and the Russian military is not allowing them to leave. Maybe what the Russian military allowed to leave in Kursk were Ukrainian soldiers. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. But those are the reports that we're getting out of Kursk, and we are getting reports that the Ukraine military, they are trying to launch attacks once again into Russian territory, this time in the Belgorod region. And these attacks into Belgorod, I said it with a very American accent, Belgorod. Belgorod. Anyway, they said that the reports are that these attacks into Belgorod were unsuccessful, and the Russian military had no problem defeating the Ukrainian attacks into Belgorod. Should we shift gears a bit? Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about stunning and brave and Churchillian Kaja Kallas. She's pissing off a lot of EU officials. Can you believe it? Say it ain't so, but German publications are reporting that Kaja Kallas has alienated major EU member states. The European hardliner has burned many key bridges across the bloc, an analysis by the major German newspaper claims. FAZ, that's the German newspaper that is making these claims. They're saying that, let me try and remember this story. They're saying that Kaja Kallas wanted to push for 40 billion in EU money to go to the Green Goblin. And this was a number that at first Jungle Joseph Borrell floated out. So a couple of years ago, Borrell floated out 40 billion in aid to the Zelensky regime, and Kaja Kallas is taking this Borrell proposal and she's running with it and saying that the EU member states, they have to take over the funding and financing of the Green Goblin, and that's going to mean $40 billion dollars or euros to the Zelensky regime. And EU member states are telling Kaja Kallas, take this money and shove it. We do not have this kind of money to give to Ukraine. From what I understand, what they've agreed upon at most is 15 billion euros. And even that money is difficult for the EU member states to get to the Zelensky regime. We don't even know if they're going to get 15 billion to the Zelensky regime. That's how broke the European Union is. So they're very upset with Kaja Kallas pushing for 40 billion to the Green Goblin. The newspaper that's reporting this from Germany is the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, FAZ. And they're saying France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal are now joining Hungary in opposing significant new contributions, according to the outlet. The coalition of the willing is cracking. The coalition of the willing has cracked, I would say. So far, as I'm reading this, the only country that is okay with the 40 billion, or it looks like the only country that's okay with the 40 billion is Denmark. Am I reading this right? Kallas, who took office in December, has struggled to win over skeptical governments. Her proposal to raise EU military support for Ukraine to $40 billion this year, aimed at offsetting dwindling U.S. aid, has met stiff resistance. The newspaper's political correspondent Thomas Gutschker wrote, many member states have refused to commit beyond the $15 billion already pledged, with Berlin's planned $3 billion contribution still awaiting approval. So far, Denmark alone has given more than France, Italy, and Spain combined. Denmark has given more money than France, Italy, and Spain combined. They're also upset with Kaja Kallas because she pissed off the United States and Rubio. So they're very upset with Kaja Kallas. Beyond military aid, Kallas has also weakened her standing in Washington. The article noted that her criticism of President Donald Trump's Ukraine strategy, dismissing it as a dirty deal, that's what she said, a dirty deal, led to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio canceling a scheduled meeting with her during her February visit. No senior U.S. officials met with her during her trip, highlighting her diplomatic isolation. Meanwhile, EU leaders are pushing to be involved in U.S., Russia, Ukraine peace negotiations, fearing they are being sidelined. No, they have been sidelined because the EU, Europe is insignificant. They're going to be left with a terrible situation after Project Ukraine is wrapped up. But as far as the negotiations go, no one cares what the EU thinks. The Trump administration, they come out with statements and they say, yeah, we're consulting our EU partners, but you know they're not serious when they come out and say that. That's just diplomatic talk. So basically, when Kaja Kallas went to the United States, after she said that Trump is engaging in a dirty deal with the Putin, that Marco Rubio snubbed her and no U.S. officials or no Trump White House officials would meet with her, and she basically went to the United States on tourism. She walked around D.C. taking photos, going to the Smithsonian or something like that. Anyway, Kaja Kallas in a bit of trouble, but this story is important. Not because of stunning and brave Kaja Kallas, though she is very important. This story is important because it shows that the EU solidarity coalition is absolutely crumbling. If Europe is going to go into Ukraine, you want to know what countries are going to go into Ukraine? Oh boy, I'm not able to speak today. The countries that are going to go into Ukraine, if they are, I still don't believe it, but if they're that dumb, it's going to be the UK, France, and Denmark. That's going to be it. That's going to be it. We'll see if Macron and Stammer are really that stupid. Possibly. We are talking about Macron and Stammer. But those are going to be the three countries. Every other country in Europe is going to say, nope, not interested in going into Ukraine and being annihilated by the Russian military in a week. That's how long French and British forces will last in Ukraine. 1 or 2 weeks tops. That's it. Anyway, the publication FP, Foreign Policy, they put out an article with the title, The Latest Russian Missile is Bad News for NATO. Bad news for NATO, the Oreshnik is what they're talking about. And I thought this article was an old article, but actually this article was published yesterday. What does that tell you? That the neocon publications are saying that Russia has military superiority. And they're basically saying in this article that the European Union, NATO, the EU, they specifically focus on NATO and on Europe, that they have nothing to combat the Oreshnik, and they're not even close to developing something that can deal with the Oreshnik. They don't even have hypersonic missiles. By the time they get to hypersonics, that's going to take them, 10 years, 20 years? Who knows what Russia will have by then? They're already mass producing the Oreshnik. And here you have the neocon publications saying that Europe is in big trouble. Basically, they're telling Europe to just shut up. Stop provoking Russia. Either stop provoking Russia or start spending gobs and gobs, tons of... I think I had a bug on my head or something. Anyway, start spending tons of money on defense. And even if you spend tons of money on defense, you're still not going to catch up to Russia. That's basically what this article is saying. Those shovels and those washing machine chips, huh? From running out of weapons to Europe and NATO are never going to catch up with Russia when it comes to military weapons and technology. Quite a change. So let's move on and talk about the other big story from yesterday, which is that Israel has resumed airstrikes in Gaza. This comes after the first phase of the ceasefire ended on March 1st. Hamas wanted to move on to phase 2. Israel said no, they wanted an extension to phase 1. And then they put a blockade on aid going into Gaza until they got that extension. Witkoff traveled to the region to try and broker some sort of a bridge between phase 1 and phase 2. I talked about this in a video a couple of days ago, and what we have now is that the entire ceasefire is at risk of collapsing or has indeed collapsed. Breaking ceasefire is over. IDF jets are currently pounding Hamas terror targets across Gaza. Netanyahu says this is after Hamas rejected all proposals by Steve Witkoff and President Trump. This is coming from Breaking 911 X account. A lot of civilian casualties, 200 killed in these latest strikes in Gaza. From Israeli media, they are claiming that, not all of Israeli media, but parts of Israeli media claim that a lot of Hamas officials were killed in these strikes. A lot of other media is claiming that a lot of civilians were killed in these strikes. We are getting a lot of horrific images from these strikes into Gaza. But that's where we are. That is where we are. The ceasefire appears to have completely collapsed or is about to collapse. I say about to collapse because maybe 5% chance, 10% chance that the strikes in Gaza can somehow be stopped and we can get back on track to getting to phase 2 of the ceasefire. 10% chance, I don't know. But that's the information coming out of the Middle East. The Times of Israel, they put out an article with the title, Netanyahu's testimony in graft trial canceled for the day amid shock offensive. PM says prosecutors approved cancellation due to urgent security consultation following resumption of hostilities. That is coming from the Times of Israel. They're implying, their reporting is saying that these strikes in Gaza were timed on the day that the trial against Netanyahu was going to resume, and Netanyahu was going to give testimony. And now, because of the resumption of the conflict, the trial has been canceled or postponed, or at least Netanyahu's testimony has been canceled or postponed. Tucker Carlson put out a post on X saying it's worth pointing out that a strike on the Iranian nuclear sites will almost certainly result in thousands of American deaths at bases throughout the Middle East and cost the United States tens of billions of dollars. The cost of future acts of terrorism on American soil may be even higher. Those aren't guesses. Those are the Pentagon's own estimates. A bombing campaign against Iran will set off a war, and it will be America's war. Don't let the propagandists lie to you. So there's a lot of fear that this is going to lead to, well, not only the breakdown in the ceasefire and the resumption of the war in Gaza, but this could lead to a wider war in the Middle East, which would pull in Iran and which would pull in the United States. I believe Trump posted on Truth Social once again threatening Iran I don't have that post bookmarked, but I believe he did say something on Truth Social where he is threatening Iran once again. And so this prompted Tucker Carlson to post what I just read you on X, warning that American voters, the people who voted Trump into office, did not vote for this. They did not vote for another war in the Middle East. They did not vote for a war with Iran, and a war with Iran would be very dangerous for the United States. That is basically what Tucker Carlson is saying in his post on X. The EU, staying with the Middle East, the EU had a conference yesterday and a summit, and this summit was about Syria, and they have now pledged 2.5 billion euros in aid to Syria, to Al-Jolani and HTS. Germany's going to give 300 million to Syria. They're reporting that this money is going to go to humanitarian aid. It's not all going to go to Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, HTS head choppers. But I don't buy that. I believe that this money is indeed going to go to HTS and to Al-Qaeda. But that's the EU, everybody. After everything we saw in Syria about a week ago, the European Union holds a summit. They raise 2.5 billion. Germany kicks in 300 million. They claim a lot of this is going to go to humanitarian causes. I say maybe. Maybe there will be some money that gets to the people of Syria who need it. But I would guess that most of the money is going to be taken by Al-Jolani and HTS and divvied up by all of these guys. Why is the European Union dealing with Syria? Someone answer that question. Why? Is Syria something that's important for the European Union? HTS, is Al-Jolani something that's important for the European Union? Of course, you could say the refugee crisis from 2015, that concerns the European Union, but that was upon Merkel's invitation. Merkel invited people to come to the European Union in 2015. And the European Union is already giving billions every year to Erdogan in order to keep refugees, migrants, whatever, in Turkey. Right? Erdogan is holding all these people in Turkey, or in parts of Syria that Turkey currently occupies. He's holding them there, and he goes to the European Union and says, give me money. If you don't give me money, then I'm going to give all of these people, about 3.5 million people, a one-way ticket to the European Union. So they're already giving money to Erdogan. Now they're giving money to HTS. HTS is just part of Erdogan. Erdogan is in control of HTS. So, I mean, anyway, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. Why was the European Union involved in Project Ukraine? Ukraine was not part of the European Union. Because the European Union is a geopolitical project. It has nothing to do with Europe. It really has nothing to do with the people of Europe. It's a geopolitical project. The opposite side to the NATO coin. That's what the European Union is. Anyway, let's do some clown worlds and wrap this video up. All right. I have a whole bunch of articles. I don't even know if they're clown worlds. Well, let's just start. Trump strips Hunter Biden of Secret Service protection. The American taxpayer shouldn't pay for the security of the ex-president's adult son, Trump said. So Hunter had something like 10 secret security agents or 8 secret security agents. I believe Biden's daughter, is it Ashley? She had something like 13 secret security agents. And Trump is now saying no secret security for you guys. I believe the law is that the direct family of the president has Secret Service, or the president has Secret Service, and the children have Secret Service, but I believe the adult children do not get Secret Service protection. Former presidents and their spouses receive lifelong Secret Service protection under federal law, but the privilege is not automatically extended to their adult children. Okay, that's how it goes. Trump has long accused his predecessor of preferential treatment of his family and of shielding his son from prosecution. And it's Ashley Biden. She has 13 agents assigned to her. And Hunter has at least 18. In a post on Truth Social on Monday, Trump argued that it was ridiculous that at least 18 agents were tasked with protecting the younger Biden, and 13 more were protecting the ex-president's daughter, Ashley Biden. Okay, so that's one story. From Reuters, German minister warns Nord Stream pipeline revival would be wrong direction. So Robert Habeck is upset that there could be a possibility that Nord Stream is switched back on, perhaps under a Russia-U.S. joint venture. And he's saying this is the wrong direction. We cannot have pipeline gas coming back into Germany, less expensive than LNG gas coming into Germany, because I don't think Germany's ever going to get the cheap prices that they once had dealing directly with Russia. But if they do deal with some sort of Russia-U.S. joint venture with Nord Stream, then maybe the gas will be a little less expensive than LNG, but still not as cheap as what they were getting it from Russia back in the day. But for Habeck, this is the wrong direction. We must continue to pay more for LNG. We must try to remove LNG. We must rely solely on wind and solar and puppy dogs and ice cream to power up our closing factories. What else? Durov, Telegram's Durov, is in Dubai. I am back in Dubai, he said. The trial is still ongoing, Durov said, but he's been allowed to leave France, and now he's back in Dubai. I wonder what deal he cut. I wonder what's going on there for him to be allowed to travel back to Dubai. Anyway, he's back in Dubai, back home. From what I understand, that's where he lives. Trump is saying that he's going to release the JFK files today. I thought he released the JFK files. I don't know. How many times have the JFK files been released? I'm losing track. But anyway, he's saying he's going to release the JFK files. Okay. We'll see what he releases. I thought they were released. Maybe not. We'll see how those files look. We'll see how many redactions are on those files. But anyway, an interesting distraction, perhaps, to release the JFK files. And finally, Boris Johnson gave an interview on a podcast the other day, Bojo the Clown, and he admitted that Zelensky in 2019 was not allowed to make a deal with Russia to go along with the Minsk agreements because of extremist forces, an extremist problem in Ukraine nationalists, according to Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson says Ukrainian nationalists did not allow him to make peace with Russia in 2019. Did not allow Zelensky to make peace with Russia in 2019. You know how that story goes, right? Boris Johnson is actually saying the truth for once. He let it slip out. But the story goes that Zelensky, when he was elected president, traveled to the front lines in Donbass, and he tried to order around the Azov NAZI military that was on the front lines. And he tried to assert his presidency, his dominance over them. And they laughed at the Green Goblin. They pushed him around. They tossed him around. They made fun of him. Zelensky left crying because they were making fun of him. I'm exaggerating this a bit, obviously. But after that incident, Zelensky has been playing ball with the Azov nationalist groups ever since, because of what happened to him when he went to the front lines in 2019. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to Duran Shop, pick up some merch like what I'm wearing in this video update. A link is in the description box down below. Take care.